Welcome to another deep dive. Today we're going to be looking at something that I think is probably on a lot of people's minds these days, and that is this whole world of regulations and compliance. I mean, you got GDPR, you got ESG reporting, AI regulations. It seems like every time you turn around, there's a new rule book that you got to follow.
Yeah, you're telling me. And it's not getting any simpler, that's for sure.
No, not at all. So we're going to try to unpack some of this today and try to make sense of it all, right?
Let's do.
It's one thing to, avoid getting slapped with a fine, but it's also about, building trust with your customers and your investors and, the public at large.
Absolutely. It's not enough to just follow the rules anymore. You really have to show that you're being ethical, that you're being transparent, accountable, the whole nine yards.
You have to walk the walk.
Exactly.
So we're also going to be digging into this thing called the GRC suite. I don't know if you're familiar with that, but
You've heard whispers.
yeah, it's a whole new world of technology that's supposed to help companies navigate this crazy regulatory landscape.
Well, supposedly make it less crazy.
That's the hope.
That's the sales pitch anyway.
That is the sales pitch. But before we get too far ahead of ourselves, I want to kind of take a step back in time for a minute.
Okay.
Remember the days of like Thatcher and Reagan?
Oh, yeah, the era of deregulation.
Exactly. Deregulation was all the rage back then.
Seems like a distant memory now, doesn't it?
It really does. I mean, it feels like ancient history.
Well, it was really the late 90s, early 2000s when things started to shift back in the other direction.
What happened?
Well, you had some pretty major financial crises scandals, things like Enron, WorldCom. Those really shook things up.
Yeah, I remember those.
That's when you started to see these sweeping reforms like Sarbanes-Oxley, or SOX for short.
Yeah, SOX was a big one.
Huge. It completely changed the game for financial reporting. Then around the same time, you had the Basel II Accords coming for the banking industry, all about strengthening risk management practices.
So it's kind of like a domino effect.
Exactly. One thing led to another, and before you knew it, we were living in a whole new world of regulations.
And it hasn't slowed down since.
Not one bit. We've got GDPR for data privacy, the AI Act is on the horizon, and then there's the whole ESG movement pushing for more sustainable and ethical business practices.
It's a lot to keep up with.
It really is. And the stakes are high. Take GDPR, for example. That one's got teeth.
Yeah, I've heard of companies getting hit with some pretty hefty fines for GDPR violations.
Up to 20 million euros or 4% of global annual revenue, whichever is higher.
Ouch. That's going to leave a mark.
It will. And it's not just about the money either.
No, you're right. A company's reputation can be destroyed if they're seen as being careless with people's data.
Absolutely. Look at what happened with some of those big tech companies that had data breaches a few years back.
Yeah, the financial fallout was one thing, but the damage to their reputation, that was huge.
Exactly. And that's why this whole conversation about compliance is so important. It's not just a box-ticking exercise anymore.
Right. It's about building a culture of compliance from the ground up.
Exactly, where everyone in the organization understands the importance of doing things the right way.
And I guess that's where this whole GRC suite thing comes in.
Exactly, because trying to manage all of this manually, it's just not feasible anymore, not with the complexity and the volume of regulations we're dealing with these days.
Okay, so let's unpack that a little bit.
Yeah.
What exactly is a GRC suite? So it sounds like these GRC suites are becoming pretty essential. But what is it about them that makes them so powerful? Is it just about having everything in one place?
It's definitely a big part of it, yeah. Instead of having all these different teams using spreadsheets and email chains to manage compliance for different regulations, you've got everything consolidated in a single platform. So you have better visibility, streamlined workflows, less risk of things falling through the cracks.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
But I was also reading about this idea of adaptability being a key feature of these GRC suites. What does that actually mean in practice?
Well, think about it. The regulatory landscape is constantly changing. New regulations pop up, old ones get updated, and even the way those regulations are interpreted can vary from one place to another. So a good GRC suite needs to be flexible, agile, able to adapt to those changes quickly.
So it's not just about keeping up with the current rules, it's about being ready for whatever comes next.
Yeah.
How do these platforms actually do that? How do they achieve that level of adaptability?
It's a combination of things, really sophisticated technology, smart design. A lot of these GRC suites are built on platforms that are designed for easy configuration and updates.
Okay.
And they often use cloud-based solutions, so you can roll out changes quickly without having to go through these long software installations or downtime.
Makes sense.
Some of them even have built-in intelligence features that can actually track regulatory changes in real time and alert compliance teams so they can make the necessary adjustments.
That's pretty impressive. It's like having an insurance policy against regulatory uncertainty.
That's a good way to put it. By investing in a really solid GRC suite, companies can significantly reduce their risk of noncompliance even as the regulations keep changing. But it's not just about avoiding penalties either, it's also about seizing opportunities.
Opportunities.
How? Well, when you have a good grasp on your compliance obligations, you can be more agile, more responsive to new trends in the market. Let's say a new regulation comes out that creates a demand for a particular product or service.
Okay.
A company with a really streamlined GRC process is going to be in a much better position to adapt, quickly develop compliant solutions, and capture that market share.
That's a really interesting point. It's not just about playing defense, it's about turning compliance into a competitive advantage.
Exactly. And that's where things get really interesting when we start talking about AI's role in all of this.
Okay, let's talk about AI. We already touched on its ability to track regulatory changes. What other ways is AI shaking things up in the world of compliance?
One of the most promising areas is risk prediction. AI algorithms can analyze huge data sets, internal company information, external regulatory updates, even news articles and social media sentiment to try and identify potential compliance risks before they even happen.
So you're not just reacting to compliance issues after they occur, you're proactively trying to prevent them from happening in the first place. That's incredible.
Yeah.
How accurate are these AI predictions, though?
It's a constantly evolving field, but the accuracy of these predictions is getting better all the time as the algorithms become more sophisticated and as they have more data to work with.
Right.
Some GRC platforms are even using machine learning now, which means the system actually learns and improves over time as it processes more information and gets feedback.
What other kind of AI magic can we expect to see in this space?
Another area where AI is making a real difference is in policy automation.
Okay.
We were talking earlier about how GRC platforms need to be able to adapt to regulatory changes quickly. Well, imagine an AI that could actually scan those changes, understand what they mean, and then automatically update your company's policies to make sure you're still in compliance.
Wait, hold on. AI can actually write company policies.
It's not quite that simple yet. It's more about AI assisting legal and compliance teams in drafting and updating policies.
Yep.
It can provide templates, suggest relevant clauses based on the latest regulations, and even flag potential inconsistencies or areas of concern.
Got it.
This can save a huge amount of time and reduce the risk of human error.
That's pretty mind-blowing. It sounds like AI is becoming absolutely essential for navigating this whole compliance landscape.
I think so. It's not just about efficiency and reducing risk, either. AI can actually help companies go beyond just a rules-based approach to compliance and foster a more ethical and value-driven culture.
That's an interesting point. How so?
Well, imagine an AI that could analyze your company's data and identify potential biases in your hiring practices, for example. Or an AI that could flag potential conflicts of interest before they become big problems.
Okay.
By using AI in this way, companies can move beyond simply checking boxes and start to build a more ethical and sustainable way of doing business.
I like it. This is all super interesting. But I'm sure some of our listeners are thinking, okay, this all sounds great in theory, but how do I actually implement this stuff in my own company? Where do you even begin? It can feel pretty overwhelming, to be honest.
It definitely can be. But it doesn't have to be this impossible task. The important thing is to take a strategic approach. Break it down into manageable steps. Our source material suggested starting by just taking stock of where things stand now. Really getting a handle on your current compliance landscape.
So step one, get organized.
Oh.
What does that actually look like for a company?
Well, the first thing is to really nail down every single regulation that applies to your business. And that's probably a longer list than you might think. It's not just about the industry you're in or where your headquarters is located. You also have to think about where your customers are, where your data is being stored and processed, and any regulations that are specific to your products or services.
It's like you almost need a spreadsheet just to keep track of all the regulations.
For a lot of companies, you do. Especially if you're dealing with global operations. It's a big job, but it's a really important first step. Once you have a good understanding of all the regulations you're dealing with, then you can start to look at how you're doing with compliance. Where are your strengths and weaknesses? Are there any areas where you might be more vulnerable to noncompliance?
Looking for those blind spots.
Exactly. And that's where it's really important to understand your data flows and your processes. Where is all your data coming from? Where is it going? How is it being used? Who has access to it? That'll help you pinpoint any potential issues and figure out where to focus your compliance efforts.
So once you've got a good handle on all of that, is that when you start shopping around for a GRC suite?
You could, but it's important to remember that technology is only one piece of the puzzle. You also need to have the right people in place, the right processes, and the right culture to really make compliance work.
So just buying the fanciest GRC platform isn't going to solve all your problems.
It won't. It's a big change for any company. And it requires careful planning, change management training, and support to make sure everyone's using the system properly. You also have to get buy-in from everyone involved, from the top down.
Everyone needs to be on the same page.
Absolutely. And that's why it's so important to choose the right partner when you're looking at GRC solutions. You want a provider that not only has a really great platform, but also really understands your industry and your specific compliance needs. They should be able to guide you through the whole process, provide ongoing support, and help you stay compliant as the regulations change.
So finding that trusted partner can make a big difference.
It can make or break the whole thing.
Well, this has been a fascinating deep dive. We've gone from the history of deregulation to the rise of GRC suites and the incredible ways AI is changing the game when it comes to compliance.
And we've learned that compliance isn't just about avoiding fines, it's about building trust, mitigating risks, and even creating new opportunities. So as a final takeaway for our listeners, remember that navigating this world of regulations and compliance is a journey. It's not a destination. It's something you have to constantly be thinking about and adapting to. And technology can be a powerful ally in that journey, but you have to use it wisely.
Couldn't have said it better myself.